So the telephone effect. This is one of the most classic vocal effects there is, and like many things in the world, it's easy once you've seen how. And as the name suggests, the telephone effect takes a normal vocal and makes it sound like it's coming through a telephone.
Special guest this week. Special guest this week. Special guest this week. Special guest this week.
See how it takes a vocal and makes it sound like it's coming through a telephone, hence the name telephone effect? And this is how it works. If you've used a parametric EQ before, this will look like familiar territory.
Special guest this week. Special guest this week.
I'm using a high pass filter and a low pass filter to remove the top and bottom frequencies. Although to be more technically correct, I'm not removing the high and low frequencies, but simply attenuating them. And you can see how I've constructed it from 3.
Special guest this week. 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 Special guest this week.
See how I've constructed this from 3 individual filters? I chose a 300Hz high pass and a 3.4K low pass because they're precisely the cutoff frequencies used by real telephones, so it sounds more realistic. Of course, if you're not too worried about sounding exactly like a telephone, you can choose different values, maybe...
Special guest this week. Special guest this week. Special guest this week. Special guest this week.
Or any other value. But certainly if you're going for the realistic telephone effect, the key 2 numbers are 300Hz and 3.4 thousand Hz. As a fun little bonus though, you can actually create this effect using convolution reverb too. It's a little bit different but also gives realistic results. Let me show you how that looks in iZotope Trash 2, one of my favourite plugins. iZotope Trash 2. Just hide everything out of the way and go into the convolution reverb module, the convolve module, and then go for the cheap radio impulse.
Special guest this week. 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 Special guest this week.
Cool stuff, right? And that is the telephone effect.